Today we're going to talk about does size really matter when it comes to the 3D printing nozzle of your 3D printer. Get your minds out of the gutter. Stay tuned, we're going to take a look at it today. Crazy Will here from Crazy Will's Tech Show. Today, we're to talk about does size really matter on your 3D printer nozzle. If you're not familiar with your 3D printer nozzle, you probably don't realize this, or maybe you do. Normally, we have a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. And that's the nozzle that you put into your 3D printer. In this case, it's an Ender 3. Most of them are like this. Some of them are a little more extended, like on the Focus. Whatever 3D printer you have usually comes with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. Now, that's how much material is coming through the nozzle, which dictates the layer height. So what I wanted to try, and I've been experimenting for quite a few months now, I changed it to a 6 millimeter nozzle. And I wanted to see if there was a difference in speed, or if there was a difference in layer lines, or if it's a little bit of both, what I was going to get myself into by changing it. Is it worth it? And considering that I have 3 different printers, 2 of them will be 4 millimeter nozzles, and that one's been a 6 for the last 3 to 4 months I've been messing with it. I figured I'd share my information with you. Now you can buy these on Amazon. Bought a little kit. I think it cost me a whole $8 and it came with all different sizes. Some are smaller, 0.2 millimeter, so if you want to do more fine detail and so forth and so on. But what I wanted to try was the 6 because I read that the 6 would bring out enough material. That's what you're doing is you're making the opening of the actual printer head extrude more material out. So you're getting a thicker stream which you could build up by changing the layer height as well. So in this video, I'm going to show you first how to change out the nozzle because that can be a cumbersome thing, especially if you're new to 3D printing. So I'm going to show you that first. How to change your settings in Prusa Slicer and Cura. So I'll go through that step by step so that way you'll have the right settings. And this will be done all on an Ender 3. And if you don't have an Ender 3, you can kind of follow along and figure out how you can change the settings to your particular printer. I'm also going to show you how much faster prints are going to be with this method, and then we're going to take a look at the resolution to show you what the layer lines look like and pretty much what we could use this for. So the first things first, I'm going to show you how to change the nozzle. So here we are at the Ender 3. You're going to need one of these silicone covers because the one that we're going to take off of this one is going to break apart and fall to pieces. So that's it right there. They're very inexpensive. I think they're only like $1.25 or less. If you buy them as a package, get them cheaper. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over here into the menu and we're going to go to prepare preheat for PLA, and we're only doing the hot end, so you only want the hot end right there. Let that heat up. Once it's reached the temperature, you're going to go ahead and hit this button again, and we're going to scroll down and we're going to go to prepare change filament, and that's just to get the filament out, and it's going to go through the process of taking the filament out. We'll go ahead and take the filament out. I like to unscrew this piece right here and pull it out just because that tip is usually pretty gunked up, and we'll just cut that tip off so that way we can slide it through the machine. And just go ahead and hit this to preheat the nozzle and go through the process of putting stuff in because we just want the nozzle to preheat. Pausing, go ahead and hit that button again. And it'll go through the process of bringing filament in, but we're not putting filament in, we're just letting it stay preheated. So you want to be careful with this because now the hot end is hot. You got an Allen key set that came with your printer. We're going to go ahead and use that. I'm going to take this bolt out, and we're going to get this bolt on the other side here. These are the two holding on the fan cover. Alright, so I like to just put this little fan over here, up on this bar here, because keep it out of the way. Now, be careful. This piece right here is extremely hot. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove this piece right here. Comes off just like that. And I have a better tool for this, but I'm going to show you with the little one. This is the toolkit that came with your Ender 3. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a pair of channel locks to hold this block. Remember, it's hot, so we're going to hold the block with these channel locks and we're going to unscrew. And remember, righty tighty, lefty loosey. So we're going to take these pliers, we're going to go ahead and hold the block right there, and we're going to hold it so we're not going to be putting any stress on the nozzle itself. We're grabbing this, putting this right in here, and we're going to turn away. There we go. Now we got it loosened. We're not going to take it all the way out. We're going to go ahead and let it cool down now, because we got it loose. That are new to this, you just go in here and you go to prepare, cool down, and you just let it cool. Alright, so now it should be cool to the touch. It's been about 20 minutes. Still a little in there. Turn that on, get that out. Alright, that's the old nozzle. Looks really rough, been through a lot. And now you take your new nozzle. In this case, it'll be a 6mm nozzle, and we'll go ahead and place the nozzle right in there. It shouldn't be that hard, you shouldn't have to force it. We'll just gently slide that in to where you get some resistance. When you get some resistance, we're going to go ahead and tighten this. So we're going to grab the block again to support the block. We want to support this block, and we want to go ahead and tighten it down. Not too tight, just tight enough to where it won't fall out. And we're going to go back to the machine and we're going to preheat it again. So we're going to go in here again. We're going to go to prepare. We're going to go to preheat PLA, hot end, and let that heat up. Alright, so that's up to temperature. What we're going to do now is we're going to take your pliers again, we're going to hold the block, and we're going to tighten her down and give it a good turn. And make sure it's nice and tight. Not too tight, just tight enough, because you want that heat to not make any gaps in between your filament. Now we're going to go ahead and cool this down again, like we did before. Alright, so after you wait 10 minutes, it should be cool enough now. We're going to go ahead and take this new silicone glove and just slip it right over that. Make sure it's up on the one corner here. Might fit a little funky at first, but once it heats up, it'll in the right space. We're going to go ahead and put this back on, the fan cover. And that should be back together now. And what we're going to do is go ahead and load up some filament. I'm using Ceramic 3D. It likes the temperature of 220. So we're going to go to the main menu here. We're going to go to prepare, and we're going to go to move axis, extruder, 10mm, and we'll go ahead and start turning it this way, adding one plus, as you can see there. And that means everything worked good, nothing's messing up. Got a nice stream going there. Alright, so that was basically it. The only thing now, because we herked and jerked this a little bit, we got to level the bed. Go ahead and level your bed so that way you're ready to go with this new nozzle. And if you want to know how to do that, take a look at my video right here. Alright, so now that you have your nozzle changed, you got to change settings in Cura and Prusa Slicer. I like both these slicing softwares, so I'm going to show you both of them. What I'll do is I'll put time stamps either in the video or in the description, so you could skip to which one you want to see. The first one we're going to take a look at is Cura. Alright, so here we are on my computer. It doesn't matter if you're on a Windows or a Macintosh, you're going to download the same software. I'm going to start with Cura because Cura is pretty easy and straightforward. It's UltiMaker Cura, and we're using this version, which is 5.3.1, which is the latest version of the time of making this video. Here we are in Cura. This is really easy to set up. What we're going to do is you would add your regular Creality Ender printer, and then you're going to change this here. And I want you to notice something. The resolution, this is the resolution the way it is now, okay? And that's with a 4mm nozzle. It's a lot easier with this because we're just going to change this 0.4mm to a 0.6. So now that's basically the settings. You could still do the standard height, but now you get all these other options to make it even bigger. So if you want to do a draft quality, you can go up to 32. I did not mess with this as much as I messed with this in Prusa Slicer. I did play with this a little bit here and there and printed out stuff, so I know it works. But we'll bring in this Batman, and this is a big bust of Batman that I found on the internet, and you've probably seen it in my past videos. But we'll go back to the regular 0.4, and this is a pretty decent sized print. We're doing 20% infill. We'll go ahead and slice that. And if we were just to go ahead and print this like it is, and we'll go to preview, take 1 day, 8 hours, 27 minutes. And that's at standard 0.2mm height, so layer height. And that's a pretty decent size resolution, gives you an idea. And you can see how many layers we have. We have almost 999 layers. So now if we go back and we switch it up to the 0.6, automatically, if we did it at this, it's gonna reduce the time. We're actually gonna save 8 hours from the last one. So that's 8 hours of time you save. That's all fine and dandy. It's not a significant amount of time. I mean, 8 hours is nothing to laugh at, but you're still doing it a day. Well, if you go down to these settings here and you go to different qualities, so let's go to like draft qualities. I don't want to go through all these, but this would be the fastest way to print it. And we go ahead and slice it. We're gonna see the time reduce quite a bit. Now we're down to 16 hours and 21 minutes. Now you can see this is going to save quite a bit of time if you're not worried about resolution. I mean, there is a significant amount. You'll see way more layer lines, but the resolution, and as I'll show you later on in the video, isn't that bad. That's how you set it up in Cura. Very simple, very to the point. You're going to try and use the preset settings. And now this is how we do it in Prusa Slicer. Let's go ahead and open up Prusa Slicer. This is the latest version. This is 2.5.2. This is a little bit different. This is the focus layout, which we're not worried about. But what we're going to do is, this is going to be a little bit more in depth. We're going to go over to this little cog right here. We're going to click on it, and we're going to add and remove presets. Once you go into add and remove presets, we're going to go to other vendors. We're going to go to Creality. Go to next, and we're going to get the Ender 3, Creality Ender 3, and we're going to put it on the 6mm nozzle. So we'll get rid of that one, and we'll go to next. We're just going to do the default profile. We're going to go ahead and just finish this up. So now it should be, there we go, Creality Ender 3, 6mm nozzle. So now we have that one in there. We don't have to worry about it. All the settings are done for you. We'll go ahead and add that same character I showed you earlier. And now you actually just pick the printer you want. So if we wanted to go with a regular Creality Ender 3, which I made a thumbnail for this, which you can see that video here if you guys want to make thumbnails for your Octoprint. But if we go ahead and slice this now, and we'll let it go through its process. Okay, so it would take 1 day, 4 hours, and 9 minutes. So now, if we switch over to the printer, and we go to the 6mm, and we use the same 0.2mm normal size, you could see right off the bat, it knocks quite a few hours off there. So now we're at 18:36. So 18 hours, 36 minutes. It's not a bad print time, but now we got all these options, and we can go even further. We can make it super chunky and fast on the 6mm nozzle. Again, another reason why I like Prusa, and now we can cut the time quite a bit. 8 hours and 42 minutes. We cut it down quite a bit. The resolution, as you can see, is going to be a little rough. But if you were just trying to do something pretty big and you just wanted the basic functionality of it, it probably will print really well, and I'll show you that later on in the video. I prefer it in the Prusa Slicer more than I do in the Cura because I feel like you have a little bit more options and a little bit more control when it comes to the 0.6mm nozzle. Now you have your printer set up in the software of your choosing, so whether you chose Prusa or Cura. Personally, I'm more of a Prusa Slicer kind of fan lately. Different types of slicing software is very good for different things. I've noticed I go back and forth quite a bit. Alright, so when I showed you the slicing software, I showed you how much time you're saving when you change it to draft or when you change it to different size settings, different layer heights. I showed you get even more layer heights when you switch over to a 0.6mm nozzle. So the layer heights, you can go a lot higher now because you're letting out more material. So what does that look like? What does that translate to? I'm gonna show you. I did a bunch of test cubes. I wanna show you guys what the resolution looks like. I'm also gonna tell you how long it took to print that cube in that time. So here we have a standard cube. This is a 4mm standard cube. I did it in black because I was testing back and forth and that's the color I had. But you can see the resolution. That's the standard 0.4mm layer height, and that's pretty much what you're gonna get on this cube. I did this cube on the 0.6mm, but I did it at 0.2 layer height. And this took about 40 minutes to print. So I got 40 minutes on this, and this is what this cube looks like. All right, and this is where we're gonna see the time difference. And these are the real times. This isn't from the actual slicing software because sometimes that could be a little bit off. This one is a 0.24mm height. As you can see, this took a total of 34 minutes. So we have 34 minutes on this. So now the time's changing quite a bit. Now this is 28mm printing on the 0.6mm height. This took 30 minutes, and you can see that right there. It is showing a little bit more layer lines, but not enough to dissuade me from using this. Maybe for something this small detail. All right, and now we're looking at 0.36 millimeter height. Now we are starting to see more layer lines, and this did take a whole 25 minutes to print, a lot faster, but you can see the resolution is getting worse. Not horrible, it's just you could see it more. And now we're at 0.44, and this is basically, believe the biggest you could do it in that I was playing with. It took 22 minutes to print this, but you could see, you could definitely see some layer lines and some problems there. So yeah, it's starting to get bad, but it did it in 22 minutes. We went from 45 minutes to 22 minutes, so that makes a big difference. Now, maybe not in small prints like this, but when you're doing larger things, it'll make a difference. Large prints, like this shoe organizer that I made. But I made a bunch of these. Technically, with the filament, it cost me almost $4 a piece for these, and they're printed like this. And normally this would take over a day to print. I think it was, and I'll put the real times right here, but it would take over a day to print this shoe organizer where it wasn't worth it. When I put it at the biggest 0.44 millimeter height, I'm not worried about layer lines, I'm worried about functionality and strength with this, and this would still do the trick. And I got this done around 12 hours, and I'll put the real time right here, and it cost pretty much $4 in filament to do, opposed to a day where it would print this, where technically I wouldn't have done this if this took a day, because that's not worth all the energy it's gonna take to print this. Although later on I found out it wasn't worth doing this shoe organizer, because I went to IKEA and found these for $2. This one looks a lot nicer, and I think it's pretty cool. Alright, so I have two of the same exact models. One took almost half the time. This was done with a regular 0.4 millimeter nozzle, and it was done on the Disway, which is an Ender 3 clone, and that's what he looks like. And then I did on the regular Ender 3, the 6.1 millimeter nozzle, and that's what this Hulk looks like. And I'll show you an up-close view for those of you who like to print characters to see if it's worth it. It's probably about 40% faster to print this, and you could see the resolution difference, but you're gonna have to cover layer lines with some kind of primer filler anyway. There you go, and you get the same results, or close to it. You could see the layer lines. I mean, you could see, you know, the difference. I'll show you close-up shots of it, and you guys can see the difference. But there you go. There's two figurines to try to give you an idea of what your prints are gonna come out if you want to try this technique. That brings me back to, what is this really gonna be used for? Okay, so you're into cosplay and you wanna make helmets. Go with a 6 millimeter nozzle, because you're gonna have layer lines no matter what. You're gonna be doing a lot of work as it is, and you could save some time printing those pieces out quickly. And it's a give and take. You have to figure out what you want as far as layer lines versus time. For me, I'm always crunched with time, so I'd rather have the printer done, so that way the piece is done, and then use a technique to smooth it out, because I'm gonna be doing that anyway. For larger prints like cosplay outfits or swords or something like that, where you're gonna be filling in layer lines anyway, totally worth it, because you can almost cut it in half the time. So instead of a helmet taking a day to print, you can get it done 15 hours. That means, hey, it'll come off the printer quicker, I could print something else, and I could start working on that piece. And to me, I think that's kind of worth it. You tell me your thoughts, leave a comment down below and tell me, do you want to switch to a 0.6 millimeter nozzle so that way you can get faster prints? Is it worth it? Is it worth the time? You let me know if you try it. That's it for me, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe if this helped you in any way, and ring that bell if you want to get notified when I make a video. And remember, you can do anything if you put your mind to it. Later, guys! I like this one better, but son of a... It's over. That's it, guys. I mean, there's other videos up there, or if you want to do me a huge favor, click the like button, or subscribe button's even better.